Webcam microphone up close.
Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and fondle slap of choice. I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not just Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have to read two sources whenever I try to prove out. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to be sadly disappointed on another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty, dirty old man.
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions, eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of.
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
Because I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for
that.
For a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
And good evening, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is the Ochelli Effect. It is Tuesday night, and we are live. Also, thank you very much for tuning in on the iTunes stream, on the TuneIn Radio app, all of the other wonderful, wonderful places. We will be taking phone calls tonight in the second hour, I believe. Maybe I'll get some in the first hour. We'll see what happens. Never know. Of course, that telephone number is 718-717-8296. There's been a lot of changes on the network lately and a few changes to my show. Although they're not extremely noticeable yet, they will be soon, I assure you. Anyway, every Tuesday on the Ochelli Effect, I do the Liberty Beacon Night. The Liberty Beacon Night, that is. Generally, it includes a presentation by Mr. Roger Landry and someone else. Now, tonight, I have someone that I have actually never spoken to before, so it'll be a big change in the second hour. And let's just see if I can find something really quickly. Leslie Carol Botha will join me. She's a journalist connected to the Liberty Beacon as well. And that ought to be interesting because that's going to be a totally cold interview, which is not something I like to do all the time, but I have done from time to time. My discussion with Mr. Crumpton, about 10 days ago or so now, was a completely cold interview. I had just sort of glanced over a couple of things and examined his work a bit and checked out his attitude in general, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I hope you guys were too. I've got to be honest with you, I'm a little worn down today, and it's been one of those kind of months, but isn't it always? Anyhow, let's see what we can come up with. Also, a big shout out to Maria Heller, who was my guest on Saturday night. I truly appreciate your time, Mother Maria. I've got to tell you, in a lot of ways, although I am not the vegetarian that I'm sure you would hope I was, I've got to say that, keep those posts coming, and don't worry so much about the hate that is dredged up by whatever it is you have to say. And I was very glad to hear someone else who I know has, an actual intellect, unlike the damaged person you're listening to on the mic right now, actually have just about the same point of view regarding Israel and all that stuff. And I had to shut that down, I got to tell you, because, getting sick to my stomach is not something I like to do while surfing through everything, although it is difficult, isn't it? Because after all, we are kind of faced with a world that is hostile to those of us who wish to coexist in it. But, enough of my utopian nonsense. Let's see what we can do here. Maria also posts on the Ochelli Effect Facebook page. Of course, there's been a lot of interesting work on there. Michelle Mashuli was posting on there. I don't think she does anymore. Not too thrilled with the change I decided to make with the show. But, again, hey, what can you do? It's my chaos, so that is how it goes. Now, let's see if we can grab Mr. Landry. I know there's been a lot of problems with his computer and things like that, and it looks like I won't be able to grab him. Well, we'll keep working on that. Meanwhile, like I said, this is normally my Liberty Beacon night, so let's just see what else we can do until I can sort this out with Roger. And I'm also going to message Miss Botha here, and you know what? I don't know if I should say Miss or Mrs., but she is the host of, I guess, the Holy Hormones on the Voice of America Internet Radio Network, also, which is Thursdays at noon Eastern. That's Miss Botha, will be coming up later in the show, and the best laid plans of mice, men, and fools named Ochelli. Wow and wow. Anyhow, let's just also check in with, because, I'm curious when it comes to what goes on behind the scenes regarding people's radio networks, etc., etc. Let me see what's going on with Dylan also, because I believe he was supposed to have his radio show launched by now, although, I may be wrong about that. I think he was supposed to have a regular network show starting on Thursday night, which means, in some way or other, he may kind of be in competition with me, but you'll be able to catch things further downstream, of course, as always, and let's not forget that you can do that with me, generally speaking. You can catch the MP3s that drop within minutes of the show and all that at ucy.tv/TOE. And, of course, there is an array of hosts there, and they are ever-changing, aren't they? So, let's see what we can do here. Did Roger come up yet? Well, it appears as though no. All right, then. Wow. Okay. Well, I do like to focus on the Liberty Beacon during this particular night of the week, and it is always great. And what we're going to do is, because I'm having this wonderful trouble getting connected to people, and I hope everybody's hearing me on the network, we're going to see, unless I'm getting message from who I want to get message from. Okay. Well, let's check in with Dylan anyway. Let's check in with Dylan in a minute. Hopefully he'll get my message, and I'll be able to add him on in. Let's see now. Alrighty. Dylan Wade.
Hey, Chuck.
Hey, how you doing? We are on the air, sir.
Awesome. So how's it going?
Well, it's going. I thought I was going to have Roger in the first hour, but unfortunately, it seems as though I can't connect to him. Now, I have a great guest coming up in the second hour, which, ought to be pretty awesome. Her name is Leslie Carol Botha, and she's also associated to the Liberty Beacon. And she's a host and a journalist, and really kind of dying to get to talk to her about stuff. But, it does occur to me that it is after August 1st, and after all, Shake and Wake Radio was supposed to launch August 1st, and your show was supposed to be coming up. And to be honest with you, I've been so kind of like mind-boggled as of late. I didn't get a chance to check in.
We had a huge problem with Comcast, so the network did not start. And now Rick, the host of the network, is sick, from what I understand. So we probably will not be starting till around Thursday, or maybe over the weekend.
Ah, see, I thought your show was supposed to start on Thursdays.
Mine is going to be on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Ah, okay. Well, hey, if you're on early enough, maybe we could figure something out, or, we could sort out things regarding, working together a little bit.
Yeah, Wednesdays they're both 5 o'clock shows, I believe.
Ah, okay. Well, that's cool, because you know what? We could actually do something where we roll between the two of them if we wanted to. If everybody's willing to cooperate on that.
Well, Saturday, your shows are 8 to 10.
Well, right, but I'm saying during the week, because I start at 6.
Right, but mine's on Wednesday. Your shows are Tuesdays and Thursdays.
You're not pre-recording?
No, all of mine are live.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, there won't be any conflict. We can grab things back and forth. See, I wasn't sure about what was going on, so I was trying to get Roger Landry, but he's still having those computer issues, I think. Yeah,
they've been throwing him around a lot lately.
Yeah, I'm unfortunate because, last week I had him on and, his mic was actually giving him trouble and everything. And then I had a kind of an abbreviated interview with you, so...
this time I should be here for the entire first hour.
Oh, awesome. Well, you know what? What else has been going on? Have you done any more of your YouTube shows?
I did one with Stu Webb on Wednesday.
Stu Webb, yeah, definitely. How did that go?
That was a good show. I think it was one of my best interviews yet.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a guy, now you have a guest that I've certainly never had, and would be kind of interested to talk to him, but just haven't quite gotten around to him. Although I got to tell you that I don't know. Did I tell you about the whole Church of Satan deal?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, you know how the Hobby Lobby, that made the news and everything with the whole, discussion of birth control and, what a religious organization or does an organization have the ability to, be able to, sort of legislate and deal with people's, reproductive rights and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm really badly butchering the Hobby Lobby deal here because things are just, I'm trying to multitask, and of course it's not going too well because, hey, most of the time I can't even task in the singular, But, but here's the thing, the Church of Satan has actually turned around and made a public statement that they're going to campaign to interject themselves into this particular debate. And, those of us who believe in the freedom of expression have got to say, well, unfortunately, we're in a position now of kind of needing to support the Church of Satan. So, this is this is a weird kind of situation. But at the same time, the fact that Luciferianism and devil worship comes up very often when we begin to enter these spiritual discussions and people start to talk about the motives of the New World Order, etc., etc. I think a lot of times they confuse what the actual practice of Satanism is with the much, in my opinion, deeper and darker motive that these other people have. But then again, I'm going to give them a chance to speak for themselves. So I'm going to have somebody on who is a mouthpiece for them, and we're going to have an interesting discussion. And I don't want to lay all my cards on the table for that one. But,
Can I join into that?
Well, we'll see what the scheduling time is and everything. We'll see how it goes. Anybody, I'll be more than happy to allow people to call in and everything else. And, and my usual people that like to join in with me, of course. So that includes you, sir. So anyway, the discussion with Stu Webb, what did you wind up covering?
I can't even remember everything we covered. He went off everywhere.
Guess. Well, let me guess. You said a couple of things, and the next thing you know, a half hour or 45 minutes disappeared, and then you said another thing, and another half hour disappeared. Is that what happened?
No, I said something and an hour and a half went by.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. But yeah, that kind of goes. I mean, but what area specifically? I mean, what was what was the deal? And by the way, you could probably find that because you still have it on the same YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
So you can find that on the Truth Speaks on YouTube up until the point at which you're going to wind up doing the Shake and Wake show.
Well, I'll still have the YouTube channel.
Oh, you're going to run both, like do YouTube on the fly whenever, and.
No, I'm going to record all the shows I do for Shake and Wake and put them on my channel.
Oh, okay, that's cool. See, thankfully, because of the nice structure at UCY, my shows automatically become a YouTube video on the UCY channel, so I never have to do that.
I'm hoping to talk to Rick C. or Barry about that today to see if that would actually be something that's possible.
Oh yeah, well even if not though, you could always do the copy thing, which which I thought of doing, but like I said again, I don't have to because Jules already has all that stuff automatically set up over here, so it's kind of cool,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so where did you start the interview with Stu Webb?
I started it basically on his background. I just wanted him to give a little bit about him. And that went everywhere.
Yeah, well, apparently a really in-depth kind of guy. Who can
really interesting kind of guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, what was the big hit there that you would say people should listen to that show to get, what was he talking about? His history was the big thing, you think, or
his history was definitely the big thing. Just for those who don't know him, in the 70s, he accidentally married into the Bush crime syndicate.
Yeah, well, the Bush crime family. That came up on Saturday with Maria as well because, there's this misunderstanding about, George H.W. Bush being in Dealey Plaza. I'm sorry to say, and although people have done a lot of good work on this, it's just one of the places that you can't put them. But there's literally no end to the criminal activity.
Yeah, we don't have to make things up for them.
No, not at all. I mean, and you don't even have to go back into, if you want, you can go back into his lineage and really trace things backwards if you like, but
you don't have to go far.
We don't have to go far at all. All we got to do is go to, Poppy Bush's daddy, and we got all kinds of fun trading with the enemy, banking, and at this point, really, when you call someone a banker or someone who's involved with the banking industry or banking in general, I mean, isn't that a whole lot more of a harsh slur among people like ourselves than being a devil whisperer or Satanist? I mean, really.
Yeah, that's much worse than anything I could call them other than a banker.
Yeah, I mean, banker is pretty rough, man. I mean, it's almost, I don't know, it's almost as bad as being a lone nut theorist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know,
I don't know how you could be a lone nut theorist.
Oh, there's plenty of them out there, man. I mean, the lone nut theorist, although we kind of got to change the term because, I mean, there are still people out there discussing 9/11 as if, 18, 19, or 20, imaginary Arabs armed with razor blades pulled it off. But,
we're going to have that debate till the end of time, even after the documents come out.
I certainly hope not. And I discussed that as well on Saturday, and, anybody who maintains a hopeful sort of gleam in their eye for that one, let's not forget. Let's not forget, though, there's still thousands of pages, withheld in the JFK assassination. And you know what? If you don't want to hear that, let me run this by you. Do you know that there are still classified documents regarding the Lincoln assassination? Okay.
There's no end to it. But, you did remind me of something. Stu actually covered that. The $3.2 trillion that was missing the day before, he covered where he thinks it went.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, without giving away too much of your show, tell me where he thinks that money went.
He goes back into his the syndicate, and he pretty much thinks it went there.
Yeah, see, here's the problem, is that, the Bushes, as evil as they are, and don't get me wrong, they are really middle managers when it comes to these kind of,
I'm sorry, my brain is kind of hurting today. I think that's what he said, but he went into so much. So the show is on my channel. It's the last video I did. So if you want to check that out, just go to YouTube. The Truth Speaks.
Yeah, please do, because Dylan is definitely one of these younger guys that I want to encourage to keep on fighting the good fight. That's for certain. You know what I'm going to do also is, because I still seem to have this trouble getting Mr. Landry, I was thinking of going to thefallingdarkness.com and simply seeing what we could see. So, but do talk a little more about Stu Webb, because who was Stu Webb when it comes to being directly associated to the Bush Syndicate?
He married one of the daughters of some of the people in the syndicate.
Awesome. Married to the mob, literally.
And he had a kid with the mob.
Yeah, well, that often comes along with it.
Yeah, but there's a lot to that story. Not enough that I can cover. It would take 2 hours to cover everything he said, because I'd have to go back and I'd have to rewatch it. I can't keep up with everything he said.
Well, let's see now. I just decided to drop to the Falling Darkness, the Liberty Beacon associated site, or partnered site, I should say. One of the big headlines, of course, was all about how we are all criminals now in the police state. And let's see, of course, we have Ebola, which now CNN is starting to pay attention to.
Yeah, what is your opinion on all that?
Ebola? Well, quite honestly, I think it's actually a pretty intelligent weapon. And thusly, as any... Go ahead.
Chuck, I know you're a movie fanatic. Have you ever seen 28 Days Later?
28 Days Later, I believe I have, but it's a
zombie. It's a zombie movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where monkeys were tested with a new virus, Ebola and rabies combined together, and lo and behold, some scientists from Monsanto just got the patent for an Ebola rabies virus, basically weapon.
Nice. Well,
awesome.
Let's combine weapons anyway.
Just because they're not dangerous enough.
Well, look, if they can combine their weaponized vaccines into multi-purpose shots and everything else, I don't see why you wouldn't, weaponize multiple diseases. I mean, talk about killing two birds with one stone. How about killing entire flocks with one spray,
Well, there's another thing that came out. If you go on Google for patent searches, the number is really escaping me at this point. But, let me see if I can find it. It'll be back a couple days. I'm just searching my history. Sorry, I should have had this.
Well, not a problem. Listen, I just happened to decide to click on, because somebody said something about, you don't talk about the police state and all that. So I figured I would take a look at this article on the Falling Darkness really quickly, because again, it is the Liberty Beacon night, and like I said, normally I've got Roger Landry on here, and I really wish I had him, but technological difficulties being what they are. Did you find the article, by the way?
Pulling it up now.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, let's look at this. Okay, what we have here is. This is at the Liberty Beacon, the Falling Darkness, let's see, it's thefallingdarkness.com, all one word, the Falling Darkness, okay. And the article is A Horrible Thought, okay. Published August 1st, by the way.
I got it.
All right, cool. We'll get to that one right after this. because this, leads back to the whole discussion of Snowden, which everybody's forgotten about. Of course, you should, because after all, he's only telling us all the things that we researched and learned, and kind of minimizing and pigeonholing things into into the false paradigm scenario. Of course, he's a traitor to our country, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, he's over there in the Russian Federation, where somebody with a little bit more of a man's demeanor, let's just say, Vladimir Putin, kind of operates his own way. So, moving on, Glenn Greenwald's No Place to Hide chronicles his work with Edward Snowden to bring the U.S. government's global surveillance network to light. It's a chilling book for a variety of reasons, including the following. Now, I just want to say before I get into this, and I have not read it, and I normally love everything that the Falling Darkness publishes, except when they happen to sample things from Reuters or some other institute or whatever that is loaded with a bunch of disinformation, which they do to show you, to reveal the enemy's operations. Let's just say. Okay, it's not because they support the whatever Mellon Carnegie Foundation or DuPont or whoever the hell else is backing these things, but they usually just show you as a matter of as a matter of developing the story from time to time. But anyway, the secret court that was set up to vet government requests for phone taps and such has become a mere formality. Virtually all requests are now granted. That's one point. Today, even the pretense of respect for the Fourth Amendment's ban on unreasonable search and seizure has been abandoned, leaving the NSA free to access phone, email, and web browsing data for anyone in the world. Though the original rationale for this indiscriminate spying was the threat of terrorism, of course, the NSA has expanded its mission to include spying on Brazilian oil companies to give domestic energy firms a competitive advantage, bugging the United Nations to help the U.S. negotiate more effectively, and listening in on German Chancellor Angela Merkel's cell phone calls in order to ... Well, who knows what they gained from that. In short, we're now spying on everyone, everywhere, and using what we find to gain advantages in trade and diplomacy as well as safety. I don't know, guys. This really is more one of those, water is wet kind of articles. Let's skip down a little bit. July 29, 2014, a powerful Democratic senator introduced a new bill Tuesday that would end the National Security Agency's bulk surveillance of Americans' phone records and force the government to be more transparent and accountable with its spying orders.
That would be nice.
Yeah, but see, again, this is like, excuse me, Mr. Fox, would you please go into the hen house and make sure the other foxes aren't eating all the hens? And could you be honest with us and tell us if there's foxes in there eating the other hens? I mean,
I can't exactly argue with that.
But it's stuff like this, and I used to have these arguments regarding a lot of situations where they would say, well, now, the Senate subcommittee is going to actually address, this or that when it comes to our loss of personal freedoms in one way or another, assassinations, different murders, politically motivated, things that have caused people to be harmed or killed in one way or another. And you know what? Again, it's just like, excuse me, Mr. Fox, before you go into the hen house, could you promise me that you're not going to eat any of the hens? And let us know that if there's any other foxes in there eating our hens, please. I don't get it a lot. It's sort of like asking the drug dealers to only sell the safe drugs and to be honest with us when you're selling the smack that's cut with the rat poison, because after all you're a straight shooter. I mean, come on. Well, you know what? I'm bored with this before I can even finish reading it. The Falling Darkness normally contains a whole lot of better stuff, but this is one of those, I'm sorry I pulled that article. But what did you have there, Dylan? You got that in front of you now?
Yes, I do. Just go on Google and look up US 2012-025-1502.
That's a mouthful. What is the headline we're looking at here?
It's Google Patents. Go to Google Patents.
Okay, cool.
Or go on Google and search Ebola patent.
Oh, Ebola patent. Well, I'll tell you what. I refuse to use Google. So I will go to my search engine, and let's just take a look at which I'm not even going to announce which one I'm using at this point. Let's see. News about Ebola patent. Okay, second Ebola patent wheeled into... patient. Funny. Ebola...
Not that one.
Nope.
Patent.
Patent, not patient. Yes, I guess.
Yeah, I made that mistake too the first time.
Let's see. Patient symptoms raised. What was the... What was the overall thrust there?
The CDC in 2010 bought a human Ebola virus species.
Okay.
Back in 2010. And then Monsanto last year put research into it. That can't be good. Anything they touch is not a good idea. Agreed? Yeah,
absolutely. CDC is dangerous for sure. I might actually be able to pick up Roger Landry here. Sorry I'm sounding so distracted, folks, but I would love to get Mr. Landry on if he can join us, though, because I'm very sure he'll have something to say about this. And if not, he'll definitely have something else much better to talk about. Not necessarily better, but better than what I'm doing, because I've actually been sitting here searching through a bunch of things, trying to pull up a couple of different people, and getting different problems here apparently. So let's see. Well, anyway, yeah, the idea that they're patenting their weapons. Well, somebody's got to get paid.
I guess.
After all, look, if you're going to work your tail off for many, many years, being the evil scientist that you are, I mean, time is money, right?
I guess.
Let me just straighten something out here.
You want me to try to pull Roger in?
No, it's just, there we go. Hold on just a second, Dylan. Alright. Let's see if we can get Mr. Landry in. Roger! Hello. Oh, hello, sir. I'm so sorry. I just, it wasn't allowing me to even contact you there for a bit. So...
Well, you're doing better than I was, because at least you could get on your show. I couldn't even get on Skype. I could barely even log into Facebook or anything for about an hour. Now, I have a brand new high-speed connection, so it's not my connection. It's the actual, I guess this area, maybe there's a server down or something. But I just now got in, and I was getting very frustrated. As a matter of fact, the colorful language that I displayed probably wouldn't have been allowed on your show.
Well, Roger, I would probably make the exception for you. And honestly, it's just one of those things that I kind of use to govern the show. You know what we were talking about, by the way, and I don't usually throw this at you, but Dylan Wade is with us.
Oh, I saw that, and that's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, and, we started to meander down the rabbit hole of Ebola.
Oh, God.
Okay. Now, there was actually a patent, and I was trying to find the actual article about it. There's a patent out there apparently for this combination of Ebola and rabies and all this other stuff. I don't know if you've looked at any of that lately, but man, it's just more of the same, though, isn't it? Just weaponizing disease and anything that's destructive to us as creatures, right?
Again, I constantly make the claim that you'd be very, very hard to bring up a topic that I can't discuss, at least with some level of intellect. This is one of them. And I would tell you that what's going on may be just a little bit further down the rabbit hole than most people would tend to care to go. I would also tell you that George Soros and also our friend Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation are very heavily involved in funding the hospital where this original outbreak is supposed to have disseminated from. Now, what really, really scares the hell out of me is that when you consider outbreaks, when you consider vaccines that are actually killing people in third world countries, a lot of people, when you consider the amount of, we're talking metric tons of nano-sized particles of aluminum that are raining down and other things from geoengineering on us daily. When you consider GMOs that have been patented to allow them to grow in aluminum-saturated soil, which doesn't exist unless chemtrails are dumping all of this stuff on the ground. And then you look a little deeper and you find the same people are involved in each and every one of these mechanisms. So when I dug in and got a little help from my friends, because a lot of people in the Liberty Beacon Project are constantly throwing us bones with information, and found out that Bill Gates and this other gentleman, George Soros, who we know to be and consider themselves to be amongst the elites on this planet, are deeply involved with the very facility that facilitated all of this. Where would you say coincidence leaves off and it's really scary jumps in?
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And after all, Roger, I got to tell you something, though. I kind of resent what you're saying because, after all, a guy like Soros is a philanthropist. So is Bill Gates. Aren't they? I mean, don't they mean us, just all kinds of warm and fuzzy things?
Can I ask you a question? Because I know you brought that up in order to elicit a response from me, and I'm going to give it to you. Okay? And I'm going to give you exactly what you expected to hear from me. Is there any better way to convince a majority of the, and I hate this word, but it's very, descriptive. Is there any better way to convince the sheeple of the world of your philanthropy or your compassion, then to put forward that type of a face, to constantly say we are going out and vaccinating the children of the third world countries in order to stop death and stop suffering within those countries? Not one of those people is able to tell you that today, as a result of his vaccination programs, between 50 and 75,000 children have died as a direct result of these vaccines. Many have been paralyzed for life. Many of them have caught the exact disease, because these are live virus vaccinations, that they were vaccinated against. None of this is told to you. Nobody knows that he invests heavily in geoengineering. Nobody knows that he owns millions, tens of millions of shares of Monsanto, which is the biggest biotech company on the planet. You don't know this. What you know is the mainstream media saying, look at this guy. He's giving shots at these poor people in Africa to keep them from dying. Poppycock.
Well,
hey, how you doing, Dylan?
Good, Roger. You?
Well, can you tell?
Well, but Roger, you know what the problem is here? I mean, we got rid of polio, though, didn't we?
Okay. Oh, stop. You have the habit of pressing the right buttons over. You know me too well at this point. When the big push was put on to eradicate polio in this country, and again, everything I say can always be backed up by fact, all right? When that drive was put on, and massive amounts of money was spent by the U.S. government and given to the huge pharmaceutical companies, the level of polio in this country, reoccurrence of polio, had dropped by 90 to 95% naturally. The disease was on its way out the door. Some scientists say within another 8 to 10 months, it would have new cases would totally have disappeared. Here comes Big Pharma with this supposed vaccine, and they massively vaccinate. I was a kid at the time. I went through those vaccinations. These were in the 50s and early 60s. Okay? I went through this. I was born in 1954. Massive vaccination drives across the country. Their effectiveness has been proven today, not back then, but today, to be almost nil. As a matter of fact, it is also a proven fact that a lot of the new cases of polio that sprang up after that massive drive were as a result of the vaccination itself. The efficacy of the polio vaccine, just like any other vaccine in history, has never been proven in long-term tests. Now, you answer me one question, either Dylan or Chuck. Vaccines have been used for well over a century. They've been around for almost 2.5 centuries. But not one long-term efficacy research study has ever been done on them. Why?
Oh.
Go ahead, Dylan.
One, I've seen studies on them, but
You've
all
seen
the studies
studies.
say they're bad.
What? Okay, so basically you're backing my point up. I want
Yeah,
somebody
I'm
to
back.
throw at me why no long-term efficacy research has ever been done on the positive effects of vaccines. Why? You would
Because there
think
are
that would
none.
have... Because there are none.
Well, ever since we got rid of the cowpox, that was about, I think, the only effective use of it, right?
I've got to tell you something. Cowpox, polio, smallpox, none of these have been eradicated. They are cyclical. They come and then they die away on their own accord.
Right, they ebb and flow. They ebb and flow, as with most things in nature, let's be honest. When you change, the ability to be, how do you put this? The ability to be clean, the ability to have proper sanitation collectively, you change things. When you change the environment a bit, whether for the positive or for the negative, you change a lot of things. Like there's a whole lot more occurrences now of, I wonder why, respiratory illnesses.
I can tell you that, but let me plug something in here because she started out by asking me about Ebola. And then you start talking about sanitation and healthy living.
I will be back in about 15 minutes, I'm sorry.
No problem, Dylan.
We're going to miss you, Dylan. I will tell you with absolute certainty that a very healthy and not nutrient deficient society has very little to worry about from the Ebola virus. The Ebola virus is a weak virus. It attacks those who are malnutrition and those who have a compromised immune system, such as the third world, such as West African societies, such as. It does not stand the same chance in areas of the United States or the industrialized world where nutrition is not an issue, where compromised immune systems are not an issue. So if you're going to start a strain up, and you're going to start a panic up, and you're going to allow it to, because all viruses mutate, to mutate maybe to a more airborne type virus, or to a strain that's a little bit more deadly, you wouldn't start that in the United States. You wouldn't start it in the UK. You wouldn't start it in Germany or Japan. You would start it in West Africa.
Well, but here's the thing, Roger, and here's where I don't know. This might actually, because I've kind of been, tongue in cheek here a little bit on a couple of the things I've said.
Yes.
But I'm dead serious about what I'm going to say here.
I hope so.
With the American populace consuming what it consumes in general, okay, the millions of gallons of, let's just start with the beverages, right? The millions of gallons of basically, immunosuppressant, drinks. The food, which is, genetically modified to the point where there are obese people starving because the body can't process stuff that isn't food, but it has to do something with it. It turns it into fat, and it turns it into not even positive fat that somebody could utilize if they were hungry, if they were starving, when their entire system decides to slow down and begin to deal with it. Right? Here's the thing. How is it that we are not actually vulnerable in this country based on that idea that people are eating crap, that people are breathing crap, that people are drinking crap?
Getting vaccinated with crap, and you hit the nail right on the head, because when you jumped in, my next comment was going to be, that used to be the case, but today, because of the chemtrails, because of the pharmaceuticals that have killed our immune system, because of the vaccines that we are the most vaccinated society on the planet, because of the GMOs, we know that a GMO tomato looks very good, but it contains less than 25 to 30% of the nutrients that a natural tomato contains. We know this to be a fact, so we are nutrient deficient. Our immune systems are compromised by the vaccines. They are. But still, you have a much better chance of cultivating and incubating something that can run across the planet in West Africa than you do in the United States. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if it gets loose in this country, due to exactly what you said and I just expounded on, we're going to find that it's going to have a much easier path than it would have, say, 20 years ago before GMOs were introduced, or 40 years ago before we started getting massive vaccination drives, or 45 years ago before they started spraying the atmosphere. If this would have happened when I was a kid, Ebola would not be an issue in this country. Today, it has the chance of becoming a blight on this country.
See, and that's the scary thing, because after all, okay, there used to be, and I know that you'll recall this very, very well, there used to be diseases that they literally described by a country, like a Spanish flu, or German, German this or that, or English, this type of infection and whatnot. Oh, by the way, your sound quality just improved like tenfold. By the way,
don't know why.
I'm
telling you.
Whoop! Now I'm not hearing you, but hopefully you're still hearing me. The thing is that there used to be these regional and localized sort of effects on disease that were literally described by a country or by a particular people that was, affected by them and infected by them, right? But nowadays, they don't discuss things this way anymore, and everything is a pandemic, which is partially due to the fact that we're much more, travel-friendly and integrated type of society. There you go, Roger. I hear you again.
Okay.
And the thing is that because of that, because of the expediency and the ability for someone to be mobile on this planet, you have a greater risk of exposure internationally. And these things are not local concerns anymore. You can't contain them so easily. And so not only has the general commingling of big pharma and all of these chemical companies and everything else sort of added to this problem, but also just the sort of modern convenience, the ability to travel, the expediency of one being able to immigrate from one place to another as well, right? Not hearing you, Roger. I don't know.
Can't hear me?
There you go.
Okay.
Now I've got you. I'll tell you, it seems like your mic is not hooked up or something all the way, because I hear a little crackle and then you come on. There you were, and now you went away again.
That is very weird.
There we go. And now you sound good. So
can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly now, Roger.
Okay. I would tell you that if you consider the modern travel, it is a two-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Because whereas it does give us the ability to form a global community, it also, as you so aptly put, gives us the ability to spread and to facilitate pandemics like the planet has never seen. The reason why we used to have the Spanish flu, or we had actually diseases or outbreaks that were named after a given country, was because they were pretty much localized to that country because of the much reduced level of international travel. Mm-hmm. Today we have taken that boundary away. So we have introduced onto this planet the perfect mechanism for global pandemics, and that is modern air travel.
And notice that a lot of the people that benefit from air travel, that benefit from international commerce and the ability to spread tainted goods and all that, you ever notice that those are exactly the same type of people that would benefit from being able to spread things like this, as well as, their international banking schemes and everything else? I mean, it just, again, where does coincidence end? And a actual blueprint begin, right?
Well, I would tell you that a partner of the Liberty Beacon Project, Dave Hodges, wrote an article that I posted probably yesterday, might have been the day before at the latest, but basically what he says is West African drug couriers are streaming across the southern border into the United States. And this is a fact, because there are a lot of West African drug couriers that are in Peru and countries around that area that are being taught to speak Spanish so that they can migrate across the southern border of the United States. You must remember the incubation period for this version or this strain of Ebola is between 21 and 25 days. So if somebody is exposed in West Africa, grabs some drug mule, grabs a hold of his whatever, comes over to Peru, takes a couple of days of lessons, heads for the U.S. border and comes across the border, he can do that in a matter of a week, still have 2 weeks to spare before he ever shows a symptom. Now, do we know this is happening? Yes, we do, because it's been documented at the southern border that West Africans are coming across as drug mules and that they are speaking rudimentary Spanish. Mm-hmm. So what we have is a direct movement by illegal cabals in West Africa, through Central and South America, up through Mexico, and across the American border. So if you can tell me that these people who would bend to being a drug mule and carrying drugs across the border and risking their lives would be the type of people who would not put themselves in a situation or would live a very clean life, so they would be pretty much immune to something like the Ebola virus, I would tell you that if you're thinking that, you pass what you're smoking, because you're high as a kite.
Yeah,
it's exactly these kind of people who would, coming from West Africa, be carrying that with them and crossing our southern border. It's very, very likely that at this point in time, Ebola already exists in this country.
And far beyond, the patient one that we have at a, secured facility, so-called, and everything else.
Yes.
That they're making all this big news out of. And I'll tell you something else. The ability for someone to infiltrate exactly in the way that you describe is just a very logical sort of thing if you lay it out. Because after all, look, let's be honest for a minute. Most people that have a problem with immigration, they describe anybody that came from the southern border, let's just say, as Mexican. So anybody who is essentially brown-skinned that enters through there and can utter some Spanish, well, they're all Mexicans, aren't they? All right? Now, that means that there's no discernment. There's no sort of ability to dissect this and understand who it is you're dealing with or what it is you're dealing with regarding this immigration. It's the perfect cover, isn't it?
It goes well beyond being the perfect cover. Okay, it does, because and again, my wife's maiden name is Maria Juana Berrios de Sanchez Garcia, so I am married to a Hispanic woman. I have Hispanic children and Hispanic grandchildren. I have nothing against Hispanic individuals, and the biggest issue that you will get, or pushback that you will get from trolls and shills, as soon as you start to talk about this issue, is you're a bigot or you're prejudiced. This has nothing to do with that. What it has to do with is, and I'm going to tell you something that you can go to YouTube and find out yourself. And I can't stick around much longer because I usually only do the first half of your show for a reason. And besides, I keep walking all over Dylan, and I want him to get some words in here. This is a very intelligent 15-year-old individual. Good. Glad to have you here. But let me tell you something that people can go and check, because you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. You're not. Okay?
All right.
There is a YouTube video that shows absolutely, it might be on Disclosed TV, either Disclosed TV or YouTube video. Go to either site. You will find a video showing that the United States Border Patrol has abandoned several of the gates coming through from Mexico to the United States and left them wide open under orders by Homeland Security and the Border Patrol elite. They have been told to walk away from their posts and leave the door open. The video actually shows people walking on both sides of the border. The door is wide open. They pan the camera back, and there is not a Border Patrol guard anywhere in sight. And this is being done under orders. Ask me, where the hell is the sanity in this?
Well, of course, Roger, you're only bringing this up because you are a bigoted individual, and after all, you would have to be against Obama. That means that you don't like black people, or half black
that
people,
right.
Of course. Yeah, you got half of it right. And so, this is why you bring this up, Roger, obviously.
My wife is Puerto Rican. And not only is she Hispanic, but what most people don't understand is that Puerto Rico was the slave capital of the Western Hemisphere for over 200 years. There is no such thing as a Puerto Rican alive on the face of this earth that does not have African blood in them. So if I'm a bigot, then I must hate Latinos. I must hate African people of African descent. No. I don't in either case, because I married somebody who carries both of that blood within her. Not only that, but you hit one thing right on the nose. I don't like our president.
See, here's the thing. Again, tongue-in-cheek, and the bottom line is it's got nothing to do with who your wife is or anything else. I just happen to know that you're just not that kind of individual.
No, I'm not.
You are concerned about humanity versus the enemy, and the enemy happens to be...
humanity versus insanity.
There you go. And that's what it is. A lot of us don't necessarily understand this right off the bat. Look, I know that you got to get running, and I really appreciate that you dropped in. I'm sorry you had the technical problems to start with. Do you know who I have joining me in the second hour?
I would like to know.
All right. Well, Leslie Carol Bota. Okay?
She is one of the up and rising stars, and in her own right, she already is a star, but she is part of the Liberty Beacon Project and one of my favorite people. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to stick around just long enough to say hello to her, and then I promise to bow out.
Well, I do hate it when you bow out, Roger. But you know what I do say to myself every time is that at the very least I know that you'll be back next week. And I'll tell you, right now you sound really good. So whatever you're doing, please duplicate it. It's working.
Well, no, this is the way
it sounds, right?
It's supposed to sound this way all the time. It's just like I told you, the internet here has been screwy as hell all day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, and there's been a series of just difficulties with a lot of us seemingly who have similar ideas and things lately, huh? But,
my fan is going nuts. Whenever I get on Skype, my fan just starts buzzing.
Probably there's some sort of malware in your computer that's just, causing residual effects and pushing additional, trying to burn out your board, probably, Dylan, from the people you talk to. I'm sure you have a file just based on the fact that you've shared time with me on the air and privately. So,
well, if I don't, I'm doing something wrong and I'm a little ashamed.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's not like I don't put, a few strange things out every now and then by the government's. I don't know, by their standards, I must be a terrorist.
Well, Roger,
so am I.
One of my favorite broadcasters at the beginning of his broadcast always says, "Welcome, my fellow thought criminals." And I will say
I like that.
That's Jack Blood, who also simulcast on UCY here, but he's a guy that, believe me, I have admired for a long time, and I've talked to, and I've had him on my show, and I've appeared on his show as a caller many times. One of the best guys in the business, and I love the fact that he starts his broadcasts out with that, because it's just so poignant. And I'll tell you, I am proud to be a fellow thought criminal with the individuals I have on here today, and everybody who's been on my show in one way or another. Believe me, I am more than proud to do that.
Well, let's say hi to Leslie, because I don't want to hog up any more time here, and I've got a million things to do, but she is such an intelligent and just a pleasant person.
Oh, absolutely. I am starting to hear things about her, and I've got to tell you, I'm really anxious to talk to her, and we're going to try and add her in right about now. Let's see if we can get her, if the Skype cooperates. Leslie,
there she is.
I am here.
All right. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, thank you, Charles.
Roger Landry is with us, and also Dylan Wade. They're also, as you know, part of the Liberty Beacon, I promote my Tuesday nights. See, I always do that for you, Roger. I make sure. The Liberty Beacon.
Well, there is another website out there called Liberty Beacon, and it's actually one that we don't associate with, and I'll just drop it at that. But, Leslie, I asked Chuck to let me hang around just long enough to say hello to you and to tell all of our listeners, this is one of the most intelligent women I have ever talked to. This woman knows of what she speaks, and she has a delivery system that can convince you in the least amount of words of any person I've ever heard put an idea forward. It's always a pleasure, Leslie, and we are so proud that you are part of the Liberty Beacon Project. You are one of the many stars in this project, and we thank God for you every day.
Well, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm humbled. It's nice to have a voice amongst men.
Oh, well, you know me better than that already. I know you do.
I know that, but I'm speaking of these two other guys I'm on the line with, and I'm here. I'm in an audience of men talking about hormones. Are we on the air, by the way?
Oh, yeah, on air, yes.
Well, hello, world. The hormone goddess is here.
Before you continue, let me bow out. And Leslie, I'm sure you're going to entertain. You always do. Dylan, you and I need to talk real soon. Chuck, thank you so much for putting up with me as you do every week, and I will talk to all of you later.
Goodbye, Roger.
Bye, Roger. Thank you.
Take care, Roger.
Bye.
One of the most wonderfully articulate and concise individuals that I ever have on this show, and he's actually made more appearances on this show than anybody else, Roger Landry. And I always advise people to check out his stuff on the Liberty Beacon thelibertybeacon.com. And also, I do love The Falling Darkness, all one word. Although reading that article earlier, I felt kind of like, well, all right, maybe it's just because I've gone over this stuff too much. And, it's just my mind that does this, where I say, yes, I understand that water is wet. Thank you. But, Leslie, please, first of all, call me Chuck, because anybody who is my friend calls me Chuck. And you being part of the Liberty Beacon, I automatically consider you, at the very least, friendly to me. So,
well, okay, Chuck.
If you don't mind, I'll call you Leslie, and you can call me Chuck, unless there's something else you'd like me to address you as.
Nope, that is just fine with me.
All right. So, Leslie, here's the thing. First of all, you've been a journalist for a while, and how long has that been that you have been involved in actual journalism?
Oh, probably about 35 years, which kind of dates me there, Chuck, but that's as far as we can go with that. It's either been print or broadcast or television, as a television show host. But what my real love is radio, and I will be moving my show, Holy Hormones, Honey, the Greatest Story Never Told, over to the Liberty Beacon this fall. I have been doing this show now for over 11 years, but have dabbled with other shows along the way. Always my focus has been on women's health, inviting men into the conversation of women's health. I've also religiously covered vaccines, and yes, vaccines and religion can go all in one sentence, and have done that along the way. My concern these days is certainly around women's health and the social politics of women's health. I have a blog called Holy Hormones Journal. It's at holyhormones.com, where I now post the latest social, political BS going on in women's health. Before it was educating women about their bodies. Now that I have my book out, Understanding Your Mind, Mood, and Hormone Cycle, which is available on my site, that's, I've kind of covered that area, and now women need to get the big picture of what is going on with their bodies and the manipulation and control over their bodies. The leading article I have up on my site this week is about Bill Gates, one of my favorite people, as I know yours as well.
Oh, who cares? In the first hour of the show, of course, we were discussing, the overarching sort of, false philanthropy of Gates and the Gates Foundation and all that.
Yeah, well, it's all about population control. And this time he's, and it's already been posted on, Robert covered it a couple of weeks ago, a hormone birth control chip that's going to hit the market, implanted into women's arms, dripping hormones for 16 years. And somebody...
I saw that.
...along the line, like Big Brother, is going to have the remote control to turn that thing on and off. And so one of the questions I ask, and I want to ask you guys... and I want to ask everyone in their audience to think about it. What is left of being a woman? We lobotomize women with steroid synthetic hormones. Mm-hmm. Then we put them on psychotropics. All right. Let's move farther down the body where, thanks to Angelina Jolie, we lob off their breasts at any sign of cancer or pre-cancer. Mm-hmm. Then let's move farther down below the belly button, and then we take out the uterus because, Lord knows, you just don't need it no more. And with the information that I have researched and gathered, the uterus certainly is an integral organ for women. The whole hormone cycle is the foundation of our health and well-being. And then, and then we take out the ovaries to boot. So, and then we're doing vaginal plastic surgery. So that our vaginas look really nice to you guys. Not that we can see them, right?
Well, I always wondered about that need for the visual, improvement. I never understood that when it came to the vaginal plastic surgery.
It just goes back to this, and then I'll let you move on. So, so the question is, what's left of being a woman? And that's the question I'm posing to your audience. So it's really, we need to wake up, women, and really fast, because we are the cash cows for the pharmaceutical industry. We are the cash cows. And our bodies now are becoming puppets of the medical pharmaceutical complex. And that is the goddess truth. And that is what I'm here to talk about. That is what my role will be over on the Liberty Beacon, to provide women alternatives, healthy alternatives, to wake up, to start thinking, and to start reclaiming their bodies. We're not going to break the cycle of sex trafficking. We're not going to break the cycle of sexual abuse. We are not going to break the cycle of unintended pregnancies and teen pregnancies until we empower women. You guys ain't going to do it for us.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. I see chaos, and the reason why I see chaos is because absolutely every point you just made is extremely relevant to the discussion. But here's the other side of the coin, too, which I have been dying to get somebody on to discuss this.
I have to bow out.
It's just getting good.
That's all right, Dylan. We will catch up with you again. And
I'm sorry.
No, not a problem, Dylan. I will catch up with you soon, sir. And you take care of yourself. All right.
Tomorrow, me and James might be doing a show. If you want to join us,
we'll see what I've got on tap tomorrow, Dylan, and I'll figure it out. But listen, thanks again for joining me tonight, and we'll go over some stuff and do some stuff soon. All right.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Bye.
No problem, Dylan. Take care.
You too.
See, the issue there is that Dylan is 15 and he's starting out doing his own broadcasts and things, and I think that this may be a little bit out of his reach at the moment. Plus, he's got some personal things going on, so we'll just leave it at that. But to get back to the discussion, here's the thing, and I want to go in depth with you on this because I've been dying to get somebody on to talk to me about it. What I see is chaos, and here's why. When you have the removal of the sexual identity of women on many, many fronts, as you so aptly just laid out. But at the same time, we also have the hypersexualization by chemical manipulation, by psychological means, and everything else in the society. Which means that, from my perspective, I see a very forced sort of, convoluted confusion where the gender is entirely under attack, but it's under attack from so many different directions now because, like I said, the increased hormones in the food supply, the justification for the overt sexualization of women at a much younger age, nowadays, not only chemically, like I said, but also psychologically and I hate to do this because it does make me feel like one of these old men who just doesn't understand the kids, but the reality is that there is this sort of support for, the let's put it this way, it's like a crisis of personality where that entire aspect of women's health, of women's being, of actually the natural way that a woman develops is actually under attack, but not only by the removal of and the mutilation of the natural, mechanisms, but also the hypersexualization and the added sort of need for confusion, like in the gender itself. And
well,
of course,
basically, let me interject here. We need to teach women that they have more value than what lies between their legs.
Well, that's
the message that young women are getting. I mean, I'm trying to take notes on the multifaceted questions and discussion that we're having here. I'm losing track, but I had to interject that. What are women valued for in the society but sex? You take 51% of the population female, all right? You turn them into a sexual object, and you rob them of their history because no one knows women's history. And
Right.
you rob them of any participatory role in government, religion, for the most part, clubs, organizations, for the most part, unless they're women's organizations, and, the few token women come in, to the male organizations, blah, blah, blah. You take away their voice, what's left? Sex. What's left? A microchip. Dripping synthetic hormones into a woman's arm. That is the final blow. There is a Native American proverb, and here it is. I just pulled it out of my memory bank. Here it is. A nation is not defeated until the hearts of its women are on the ground.
Mm.
And that's what's happening all around the world. 1 in 3 women are being abused, raped, these days, sexually assaulted. 1 in 3 women globally.
Mm.
That's a lot of trauma, and that's a lot of trauma that we carry with us in our DNA from generation to generation. What does that do? It shuts us up. It puts us in survival mode.
Right, and but this is just the tip of the iceberg. Have you ever heard of Maria Heller?
Oh, I'm sure I have. Refresh my memory.
Well, Maria Heller is actually she hosts her own network and does her broadcasts. She's also known as the Mouth That Roars. She's been a broadcaster for a long time, and she's actually friendly to me. She's been on my show a few times, and she considers that I was possibly her son in another life. But let's leave it at that for now. She's one of the most incredible voices, and this is one of the topics that she often addresses. And we were discussing, I was just thinking to myself that it would be really great to put you in touch with her because, the sort of, this is not about the false paradigm liberal agenda of, empowering women, based on these sort of false premises. That are all, circulating around exactly what you were saying is just the sexuality aspect of the person. And the thing is that this is not freedom that they're offering by expanding this stuff. It's actually just another form of manipulation. The new and improved NOR plant that now has a remote control, which was another horrendously dangerous sort of thing that was, inflicted upon, female kind, let's just say, in the past few decades. And all of the uses of these, biochemical attacks on the natural state of being for the feminine person are really very undercovered by most people. They're not being spotlighted. They're not being accentuated. Well,
and here I am to do all of that, Chuck.
And
I am talking about this. Depo-Provera is the birth control vaccine. The Gates Foundation uses it freely. And that's what it is. Implanon. All right, you said Norplant. Norplant's taken off the market here. It's still on the market, I believe, in the UK. I didn't know if it was remote controlled. I thought it was 4 rods that were inserted into a woman's arm dripping synthetic hormones.
Well,
it's been replaced here by Implanon. Implanon, Implanon, a single rod that's being inserted into young women's arms, dripping synthetic hormones. And I was really curious about this and just sort of wondered, I wonder who manufactures this one. 2-minute research and found out it's Merck Pharmaceutical Company. The same people who bring you the HPV vaccine, Gardasil. They're standing on one side of the fence offering a birth control method, dripping synthetic hormones, that does not protect women against STDs, all right? Mm-hmm. And on the other side of the fence, then they're standing with their HPV vaccine, and I find that highly morally unethical, unintegral, and wrong.
Absolutely, and this is part of my point. And I'm not saying that Norplant was remote controlled. What I'm saying is that was sort of the test project in order to introduce this kind of stuff where you had this implant that was damaging. It sterilized a lot of women. There were lawsuits. This is why it's not on the market now.
Well, those 4 rods just getting lost in a woman's arm. They couldn't find those things. Now they got it down to 1 rod.
Right, and gee, that'll help, right?
Yeah, that'll help a lot.
And again, though, I mean, but the hypersexuality in combination with removing, again, like you said, the encouragement now to remove the breasts, the destruction, and a lot of these chemicals, a lot of this stuff which is supposed to be for birth control, which is supposed to help prevent disease and what have you, is actually just like corrosive to the
endocrine system. They're endocrine disruptors.
And then on top of it, when you put the SSRIs into the equation, which are being, spread on a massive scale among the entire population.
Those are neural disruptors.
Right. So what do we end up with here?
Yeah, we end up with a mess. And men, I listen to men's stories who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I get it. Their women are a mess. And that's why I do what I do, because hormone imbalance between men and women, as we're being bombarded with all these endocrine disruptors, is ruining our relationships with each other, with our kids, our kids' relationships with us. Everyone's flying into a hormonal rage, and it's uncontrollable. Do I have the floor for a minute? Because I could continue.
No, absolutely. I really want to hear about this because
all right, here's the deal.
This has been one of the things that has disturbed me for at least a decade, where I've seen nothing but a very well orchestrated, mutilation of the feminine creature. In essence, and I know that sounds kind of cold and all that, but to me, there is a natural and beautiful process that occurs throughout a woman's life that I've seen disrupted from the initiation of adolescence all the way through to senior citizen women who are given different hormone therapies and things like this. And it just seems that there is no end to the amount of manipulation and damage being done by Big Pharma. And also by the various media outlets on a psychological level, especially to women. Let's just say, and I know I'm not a woman. I know that men are also under attack, but there is a specific and insidious move here to remove the relevance of a mother, to remove the relevance of what is uniquely feminine in our society, in my opinion. And the feminine and the masculine in their natural state are really the essence of us as people. There is a reason why there are 2 genders,
It's balance, and we need to get to the place of partnership.
Right.
And for me, it's empowering women to understand that. Now, what you were saying about this sacred nature of women. Women were revered as goddesses many moon cycles, as far as back as I can see, even farther. Many moon cycles ago, women were revered as goddesses. Why? Because they understood the cycles of life. Why? Because they menstruated once a month. Now, this is, we're digging deep. We have a picture of an archived antler bone with the moon cycle and the menstrual cycle etched in it from 250,000 BC. So I'm telling you, it's been a few moons ago. Mm-hmm. But women were the first to understand the importance of living with cycles. And of course, people had to do that. They didn't have heaters and fluorescent lights and, windows and window coverings, right? And cement over their heads. They lived outside pretty much, except for whatever hut or tent or whatever that looked like for them. In other words, they lived with the cycles of the sun and they lived with the cycle of the moon. And when the moon became larger in the sky, it was a waxing moon, the days were longer. culminating with the full moon. And when the moon was waning in the sky, then they'd huddled around the fire. In fact, before we understand the role that sperm played, it was thought that the full moon impregnated women. Too bad we lost that one. But Rosalind Miles wrote a beautiful book, the history. Women's history, something around the world, something. It'll come to me. Rosalind Miles. That's an important name. And in it, she said that women were revered as goddesses because of the link between their menstrual cycle and natural cycles and the lunar cycle. Everyone knew that pattern. And they were the first agronomists, they were the first economists, they were the first agriculturalists, they were the first healers, they were the first midwives because they understood cycles. Now, let's fast forward to today. The reason that we're all ill, one of many reasons, but I think is one of the most crucial reasons, is that we're not living with circadian rhythms. We're not living with cycles. We're suppressing that natural cycle in us. Every cell in our body dances to the circadian rhythm. The endocrine system regulates external energies with internal energies. It is the great communication system through hormones, which float to every cell in the body through the brain and through the central nervous system. Cycles are the dance of this universe. The moon rules. We have come to be a sun-loving society, and many have noted that if you have a sun-loving society, you have a patriarchal society.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lunar culture, which existed for thousands of years until 1548, I believe, when the Gregorian calendar came into play. But the lunar calendar was built on 13 moon cycles, and each new month started with the new moon. That's the dance of the universe. I don't know how much I'll get into that with you, but that's what I teach. That is the dance of the universe. When we lose that rhythm in our body,
right,
the cells go into chaos. And you were talking about chaos before. Let's take it right down to the cellular level. Now, what did that Gregorian calendar do? It created a false reality. We're living in a false reality. All of us, and women especially. This is not our reality. This is not how we would have created life if we had a voice in how things were going to unfold. But it's a false reality based on false time. And because of that, most of us live minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, until we drop dead. It's like the ever-ready bunny, right?
Uh-huh.
You go and go and go, and you drop dead when the battery loses its charge. I can't put it any simpler than that. That's the process of disease. You wind down. In fact, we're not even aging anymore, Chuck. You know what? We're not aging. We're disintegrating.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference. No, there's a big difference.
Right. Well, I want to hear your explanation of that, but just so you know that you have a sympathetic ear here, because I understand the lunar calendar, based on the fact that although I hate to pigeonhole myself into a spiritual corner here, and the reason why it is so important to me to explore the feminine characteristic in general from an emotional standpoint is that basically, although again I hate to pigeonhole myself, most of my practices, most of my spiritual beliefs are very closely associated to paganism, and therefore there is a revere which must be held for this, and there is an understanding that was a great more harmonious to us as creatures than the current societal shift we are living in, and everything that you've said is absolutely true. That these types of cycles and the relationship between things was much greater understood by the women in society. This is why typically they have also ended up being scorned by religious organizations, by those who misunderstood them and categorized them as witches, and et cetera, et cetera. The fact is that witchcraft or magic is really the practice of science that the population doesn't necessarily understand at the time.
It's the practice of intuitive science.
Right.
And I'm so hopeful these days for many reasons, but because science and women's wisdom and intuition are married, are becoming married. What women have innately known all of these years is now being backed up by science. My book is a wonderful example like this. Understanding Your Mind, Mood, and Hormone Cycle. This is a book written by women about our perspective on the sacredness of our bodies, the value of the menstrual cycle, the importance of the endocrine system and how that works with the brain and the big picture of the neuroendocrine immune system. We bring in the sacred. We bring in living with cycles. So I invite you, Chuck, to buy my book. And because it speaks to everything that you're just talking about. By the way, the first witch to be burned in the United States was a midwife. And women still carry the memory of those witch burnings in our DNA, and men do to some point as well, who are still consider themselves pagans. We still carry the horror of that in our DNA. Why? Because the only way for anyone to survive the witch burnings was to shut up, was to silently denounce themselves and to go with the flow.
And to never really, accentuate the positive that was there when it came to interacting, when it came to as healers, as caregivers, as doctors of sorts, as so on and so on. I found out a few years ago that my I believe it was my great grandmother on the one side had actually been victimized by her neighbors in Ireland. Because she was able to, the story finally boils down to, she was healing people with herbal medicine that weren't supposed to get better, and this sort of mystical, aspect that she just simply had passed down to her was seized upon by an ignorant population that surrounded her, and that's part of my heritage, So the idea that now there is not, just the targeting of particular women who seem to have these skills or seem to be more enlightened or seem to be, witchy in one way or another. This is not even the case anymore. Now it seems to me as though the entire female population has been targeted. And as you so aptly put it, it does have to do with a depopulation agenda. But I think there's even more to it than that. I think it's actually, I actually feel as though those who are in support of this kind of stuff really do have on their agenda the torturing of the species, and one of the best ways to do that is to remove that empathetic teacher, that intuitive aspect of humanity, essentially, and that's what I see. I'm wondering if you think it's that large of a scale, or if you think it's just
I know it's that large of a scale, and unfortunately, everyone suffers. I see women like the nucleus of an atom. If that nucleus is intact, then the protons and the electrons are intact.
Mm-hmm.
If the nucleus is not intact, again, going back to what you said brilliantly at the top of the hour or somewhere there in between about chaos. Chaos ensues. Chaos is inside our body as much as outside of our body. The only way that we are going to have any chance to save our humanity is to empower women and to wake women up. And men are going to be just as happy about that, and kids are going to be just as happy about that as women are, because women are not living to their full potential. I don't care if they've hit the glass ceiling and they're living in multi-million-dollar homes. I've heard plenty of tales about women with $1 million driving past these $1 million homes, wondering what type of abuse is going on behind those doors. So it ain't the dollar figure and it ain't hitting the glass ceiling that's going to make a difference for women. It's going to be understanding our body, taking control back of our body. That is what we have to do, number one. Our body, mind, and spirit. Those three things. And that's being tampered with women. Why? Because we made such fabulous contributions along the way. I am such a strong proponent of women's history, and yet it has been buried, and will continue to be buried because, as I mentioned before, you take away someone's history, you take away their sense of identity.
Right, and the identity crisis, like I said, that has been thrust upon humanity in general, is really easily seen in this light. I wonder, just to give people an idea about because I always talk about redacted history, of course, but the thing is, from this perspective, I'm wondering if you could just give us a couple of highlights, things that are being hidden, things that are being kept away, if you don't mind, because...
well, I'm going to pull up a quote, and I've got two quotes to share that I want to share with you. One of them is not pulled up, and I'm going to pull it up now. One is from Germaine Greer, and she wrote a book called The Whole Woman in 1999. And this is what she had to say. A woman's body is the battlefield where she fights for liberation. It is through her body that oppression works, reifying her, sexualizing her, victimizing her, and disabling her. I think that sums it up. I mean, because you can go all the way back to Aristotle, and they were even debating and linking the uterus to hysteria that hundreds and thousands of years ago. And that has been the basis for women's psychosis. I have PowerPoints on the history of women and mental illness, and history of women and addiction, the history of women's history. I have spent years putting these things together because I love it, and I'm starting to find platforms that are appreciating this type of work. But I mean, here, let me pull something out. In the 17th, 18th century, men had the key. And they could lock their wives up in loony bins without their wives' permission. And most of those loony bins were filled with women with premenstrual syndrome, postpartum depression, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is now labeled as a mental illness. And so that's what these institutions were filled with. Women have had to fight for every single human right. We've had to fight for the right to vote, the right to get educated, the right to own property. And women were so abused by the president, by the government, by the people. Those early suffragists were so abused. They were thrown in jail. They were beaten. They were starved. They went on a hunger fast. They were not going to give up. We have fought long and hard for every single right that we've had to have. And we fought for the right for abortion rights. I'll get back to that in a moment. We fought for birth control, the right to decide when to have a pregnancy, and not just every time we lay down in bed with a man. However, that fight is being turned against us because the pill is passé. The pill is passé because of human error, because women forget to take the pill. No, that's not the real conversation. The real conversation is that they're giving the pill to pubescent girls at menarche, time of first menstruation, before their endocrine rhythm even gets going, to an age group of girls who can't remember to do anything, let alone take a pill at the same time every single day, right? Right. So, but they're using that as an excuse. So what's come into play are synthetic dripping hormone IUDs, implants, depot vaccine, birth control vaccine. Oh, which can I bring up another point? And then I'll go back to my tirade. My other point is that the depot birth control vaccine is also used as a sex castration tool for male sex offenders in prison. Now, imagine if that was marketed that way. So Where was I?
Well, here's the other interesting thing, too, with the pill is that, they started to spread this just like they've done with the psychotropic drugs. Initially, it was ill-advised to give them to younger people. It was ill-advised to give them to people who hadn't been fully developed yet. Then they started creating benevolent uses for it, and I'm holding up air quotes while I say that, because there were, say, younger women or girls, and because I do view a 12-year-old as a girl, I'm sorry, but there were also younger women and girls who were given the pills and given birth control under the guise of controlling stuff like ovarian cysts and things like this. And this started happening, I don't know, about 20
Oh, heck, they put girls on the pill from everything from acne to a broken ankle. A study just came out stating that 63% of women, young girls, whatever, are on synthetic hormones and they're not sexually active. 63%.
Right, and that's exactly the point, is that they started creating these different excuses. I mean, look, there may have been a reasonable use, let's just say, to regulate a girl's cycle in order to reduce the size of these cysts and things like that. I'm sure you've heard of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh. But the thing is, what happens? They begin to expand it, just like with the psychotropic drugs. Initially, stuff like Prozac and things that later became Seroquel and all of that, these things were not even advisable to allow, say, a child who was under the age of 18 to even touch, right? Now they're being prescribed in mass to toddlers. The same kind of mechanism here has been utilized to make it much more acceptable to prescribe and hand these things out. And meanwhile, as you so aptly put it, you're handing these things in a lot of cases to young women and girls who are not even fully developed in their natural way, regarding their own menstrual cycles, etc., right? And doesn't it seem to be the same mechanism, only the names have been changed? You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's true. The problem is now, and the pill is known, synthetic hormones are known as the largest uncontrolled experiment in medical history. So that being said, we are now 3, 4, 5 generations into the pill use, and this excess estrogen, synthetic hormones are being passed through the umbilical cord into our children's bodies, which means that they are being born with hormone imbalance. Take a deep breath, do a Google search for hormone imbalance in kids. Precocious puberty is actually the term, and you will see horrible disfigurements of the human body, to men, to girls, to females, and to boys.
See, and that's
what's going on.
Right, and that's where, like I say, the hypersexuality occurs, because now you have this additional synthetic estrogen, right? And then you have things like, look, the easiest thing for me to point at, and I'm sure it's much more wider spread than this, but, when you look at the dairy products, and the stuff that they've given to, the cows, right, which is then passed along, through the cheese and the milk and everything else. What have we now added into prepubescent and also adolescent women who are in the process of stabilizing their own natural cycles regarding their hormones?
They can't. What we know now, yes, they can, and I will address that at some point. However, let's expand that list of xenoestrogens to perfumes, to makeup, to the dryer sheets you put in with your wet clothes and the dryer, estrogen mimickers, household solvents, meats, water. Fish are mutating in our waterways because of all the estrogen that's being excreted via urine into the water treatment systems that many that are not equipped to handle synthetic hormones, and so they're getting into our waterways and our streams. Sunscreen is a big one, and we all buy into the sunscreen thing. Endocrine disruptors and sunscreens. Plastic. Oh, God. Plastic. Chuck, everybody, whatever you do not microwave in plastic. And that's how our processed foods are coming, conveniently in plastic. It sets off a chemical firestorm in the microwave that you cannot smell and you cannot feel and you cannot see. But it is there. In fact, don't microwave. It changes the DNA of your foods. Mm-hmm. But do not microwave in plastic. Ditch the plastic water bottles, which constantly leach BPA. Baby bottles leaching BPA. Even the BPA-free bottles are now leaching BPA. Just like in a little endocrine disruptors. So it just goes on. It's just about. I mentioned everything that you're surrounded with in your household, especially for women.
Right, and I was discussing this with Suzanne Posel last week about the BPA and now the BPA-free products, so-called. They're essentially made with something that's might as well just be called BPA plus, because that's what it actually contains. It contains essentially the same chemicals and then a whole lot of other crap, which now makes it even worse. But
chemicals are bad. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The body does not know how to synthesize chemicals, so it stores them.
Right.
And they're not being absorbed. They're not being excreted. They're being stored, which is one reason for the state of obesity across the world. The other, and I think this is such a fascinating point about obesity, and I know I'm sort of taking you down a different road here, but trust me. Is that because we're not getting the nutrients that we need in our foods, Chuck, the body is storing empty calories for a rainy day.
See,
the body is starving.
This is what I was discussing. Yeah, I discussed this I don't know if you missed it, but I was saying exactly this, that of course with all the GMOs, and with all of the non-food that's in the food supply, basically, there is no wonder why there are, obese people that are still hungry and continuing to grow in their obesity because, after all, they're consuming things which are not being processed as food but are being stored as bad fat, is what I described it as, but essentially that's what happens.
And that's a really good point. And none of us are getting the nutrients that we need. So, and especially the brain. The brain is the motherboard. It is the computer in our head. It is filled with so much electrical circuitry gone bad because of all the chemicals and things crossing the blood-brain barrier. But that motherboard rules every single cell in the body. In fact, brain cells have been found in every organ in the body. And we used to think of this as the great mass between our ears, that blob between our ears type of thing. It used to even be thought of as inert, and we only use 10% of it, whatever, but it is lit up with electrical circuits. We are no longer Homo sapiens. Because of science, and especially neuroscience, we are now luminescent Homo sapiens. The ego is gone. The ego has destroyed most of us, has divided us, has conquered us, has suppressed us. We can no longer look at ourselves as ego, as people. We are biochemical beings. And our moods, our behaviors, our rage, our aha moments are all based on the state of health of our biochemical being. And that is what we need to be taking care of. Not putting the makeup on and not dressing to kill and not eating just to eat. We need to feed the brain. There are three major systems in the body. They're called the neuroendocrine immune system, the NEI super system. Mm-hmm. And when those three systems are intact, that's when you can have health and healing. Those three systems, and it's kind of like the triphasic aspect of it. All life is triphasic. The sacredness of life is triphasic. You see that in architecture. You see that in Father, Son, Holy Ghost. You see that in Maiden, Mother, Wise Woman. All sacredness is triphasic, three phases. So now in the brain you have the neuroendocrine immune system. That is the balancing act. That's the system that governs all other systems in the body. And when those three systems are intact, you have a chance of getting your health back and thinking healthy. As I mentioned before, we're no longer in control of our rage, our emotions, our behaviors. We're compulsive. We're addicted. We have hormonal rages. We have crying jags. We have screaming fits. Men and women alike. I sat in on a neuroscience webinar years ago now, Chuck, and I think his name was David Mark from a neuroscience researcher from Neuroscience Institute, I believe, is the name of the company. And very technical, and I was working in the field of addiction at the time. We can see how the brain can change and heal itself now with brain images and scans. And Dr. Daniel Amen does a fabulous job of speaking about this on PBS, and Gary Knoll addresses it, and Amen has a fabulous website where you can see how the brain changes and how the brain changes actually when the premenstrual syndrome hits. But be that as it may, the brain really doesn't age. And the brain does have the ability to heal itself given the right care and feeding. So watching this, and even watching the brains of severe alcoholics and severe people with mental illness and meth addicts, and seeing that with abstinence and care over time that the brain will heal itself. And that's that road that addiction and recovery is going down now. Instead of addiction being a moral disease, it is now safely ensconced in science and medicine where we're recognizing that addiction is a disease of the brain that can be managed and treated. When the brain doesn't get the nutrients that it needs, it will latch on to any behavior or any substance to satiate itself. When you give the brain the nutrients that it needs, all of those behaviors go away. When we feel depressed, anxious, fatigued, those are the emotions that we are feeling due to a depressed, anxious, fatigued brain not getting the nutrients that it needs for an optimum survival. And when the brain starts shutting down, then every other system in the body is going to feel the effect of that. The mind is the first one, which is why we have so much ADHD, autism, and we're not going to get into all those causes, but of course there's all the chemicals crossing the blood-brain barrier. ADHD, autism, bipolar disorder. Wake up, women, we're normally bipolar. It's how high we rise and how manic we fall. That's where that classification came from. Bipolar disorder. Schizophrenia, Parkinson's, you name it. It all starts in the brain. You start targeting the brain with those nutrients, and all these symptoms disappear. There is a product out of Canada, truehope.com. It is now available through qsciences.com. 25 independent published studies on the use of this product. Over 100,000 people are off their bipolar medication. This company fought Health Canada and won. This is where we are going. You cannot get the nutrients from your food. You cannot get the minerals you need from from the soils, even if you're growing organically. They're not there. We need minerals. And what this company has found in their proprietary formula is that it's minerals in synergistic ratio with each other. And they have made their product extremely bioavailable. It is chelated and micronized over 96 hours instead of, a couple of days like most vitamins are. It is bioavailable. So you put it in your mouth and you're starting to digest it immediately and it bypasses the stomach. This is the new science. This is the new healing. This is the new medicine. This is women's intuition coming back into play to start helping and saving people from living in the hellhole of their minds. And the most egregious people doing that are our leaders and our politicians. The people who are calling the shots. And if we don't get our voices back, we don't get our health back, they're going to roll right over us and they're going to put us away any which way they can and make us powerless. And they're doing a damn good job of it. So we need to get healthy. It starts right here on your show. And I invite all of you, qsciences.com, truehope.com. Check out the science. Actually, the scientific, the senior editor, Stephen Kimberly, senior editor of WebMD, sits on the scientific advisory board for Q Sciences. QSciences.com. We are seeing a nice blending now because doctors know that whatever they're doing is not working. They're waking up too. This is not working. People are getting sicker. What am I doing? So science, neuroscience, nutrition, women's intuition. I mean, what did her grandmother say when we weren't feeling well? Eat. And then she'd pluck the chicken and she'd throw the carcass into the big soup pot, and then she'd throw in the vegetables from the garden, and the vegetables from the garden had the ashes from the wood stove. Well, that was all minerals. And then she'd boil the carcass from the chicken, and all the meat would come off, and then all the minerals would leach out from the bone. So, what's his name made a fortune on chicken soup books and everything like that. What's the miracle about chicken soup? Minerals. We're not getting minerals in our diet. And if you go out and buy your zinc and your magnesium and your calcium, they're not going to be as effective because they have to be in ratio with each other. Synergistic ratio. Our life is built on cycles and ratios. That's the science of it. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. Listen, there's only about 5 minutes left, believe it or not. You definitely went right through an hour with me here, and I got to be honest with you. I didn't get to everything I wanted to, and I wasn't able to discuss and hear everything that you had to say about these topics. I know we kind of jumped around a little bit, but I can't thank you enough because this is great. And I'll tell you something else. If you want to come back on and do some focuses on women's history, or if you want to stay focused, let's just say on minerals, or
I would love to come back on. Thank you so much. No one has offered that. In terms of, actually, Chuck, you want to talk about women's history? I'd love to come on and talk about the history of women and mental illness, because it's a big one. Women and addiction, and I can certainly be more prepared for all of that and to discuss that on each show. These are important topics for women to understand that we're being manipulated. Oh, I got one last quote for you. All right, this is a good one to end the show. Eve Ensler, In the Body of the World, came out in 2013. Hysteria, a word to make women feel insane for knowing what they know.
Wow.
Can I repeat that?
Please do.
Hysteria, a word to make women feel insane for knowing what they know. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
And I'll tell you something, it puts the entire concept of the use of the word hysterical, which is always, or not always, but let's just say the majority of the time, whenever someone uses the term hysterical, it always has to do with a female. And isn't it interesting that that's exactly what that sounds like to me, which is, yeah, you're hysterical because this is obviously a female problem. This is obviously just because you're a woman. This is obviously just because there are a million different ways to look at it.
Let me present one which we present in our book, which I present in my teachings and anywhere I can. And I mentioned that women are normally bipolar. When our hormones are rising, we can move mountains. We just know what's going on with our body. We can move mountains, and we can participate and play in this world, and we pretty much multitask and keep it all together. When our premenstrual phase hits, and of course now I'm talking about extreme cases where it just used to be a little roller coaster, but now it's like falling off a 40-foot cliff onto jagged rocks below. Part of that premenstrual phase is that we're more spiritual, intuitive, and psychic at that time, but we are so pissed off because our reality is knocking on our door, and what we know to be true and what we know to be real is such a far cry from the facade that most of us live in our daily lives. A lot of us do rage because we're not in control. We do rage And that's where this came from, the hysteria. And women are called hysterical when they go into the doctor's office. Oh, it's all in your head. And I'm watching the clock too, Chuck. So this is what I teach. I teach women about their hormone, their endocrine rhythm, their mind, their mood, their hormone cycle, so that we can get to a place of understanding that we don't have to rage, that we don't rage when we're premenstrual. We take action after our hormones start rising on the other side, and we find ways to gather with other women, to share, to talk, to bond, and instead of rage against our husbands, instead of rage against our children, instead of rage against our coworkers. And there are tools, and these supplements help with that and restore hormone imbalance by feeding the brain, the neuroendocrine immune system, and just understanding.
Thank you so much.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, frontal slab of choice. I don't know what that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from, as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want you to have just read two sources.